All right, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. I am attorney Kevin, and we got another incredible episode of the Not an Accident podcast. This is, I believe, episode 39, so we're getting up there, and we have an incredible guest right now, Tampa's own money man, Mr. Ryan McGuinness in the house. Welcome, my dude.
Thanks for the intro. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. So RPM Realty Investments, so you guys do some real estate lending, or that's what you do is real estate lending.
Sure.
And then you have the High Motor Society, correct? Motor Club Society. We'll get into that. We'll talk about you being a pilot as well, and then obviously being an investor in some other opportunities in town. So we'll make it happen, man. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
So I want to start out. I'm just going to get right into it. You guys know we don't do like the origin story and all that. I'm sure it'll come out throughout the pod, but I want to talk to you about a concept known as OPM. Other people's money.
Sure.
So tell me how important it is to learn how to use other people's money and how you facilitate that.
Yeah, so the infancy of the company, when we were lending money, we had our own money, right? But the company has scaled tremendously. We have more than 100 million in active notes, doing 50, 60, 70 million in new deals per year. So when we hit that capacity, we started to use other people's money. We didn't want to use bank or institutional money because then we would be just as slow as a bank or institution. So we have continued just to use regular people to help facilitate our loans, and it still gives us the speed that we need to work quickly.
So that's what one of your, and I'm going to butcher this, differentiators, I did say it right. We were talking about kind of in the pre-interview is you guys move at like lightning speed because you don't have to deal with all this banking things you were talking about. For example, like all of a sudden you get to the end of a loan period and you're like, oh, by the way, you wore a blue shirt when you signed these documents. Yeah. We only give loans to people in red shirts.
Right.
So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So being a private lender, that if you go to a bank, generally funding for a property may take 30, 60 days. There's probably going to be some hiccups in there. And they don't necessarily, the issues aren't rational ones, right? Maybe not as extreme as your blue shirt one, but close, right? There might be some sort of charge that they put on their card, or they might have had a leave of absence in a job, but now they make more money than ever, but they'll say, hey, well, you didn't work for 2 months last year. Well, now I'm making double what I made. Well, sorry.
You bought an engagement ring.
Yeah, there's a million scenarios. So we're an asset-based lender, and that term is thrown out a lot. And a lot of companies will say asset-based lending, and then they're still saying what's your credit, what's your debt to income, what's your bank statements, tax returns, what do all those things look like? We're not, right? All we're looking at is the value of the property, and then we lend up to a certain threshold of that property. So we are truly an asset-based lender in that regard.
So I'm going to throw out a buzzword because I was learning some things last night and obviously know a couple. LTV, loan to value. So you guys are looking at, hey, listen, this asset's worth, $1 million. On a bad day, the market, rips down. We do some 2009 nonsense. Maybe it's worth, 700. So we'll loan 600 or something like that. Is that kind of a rough kind of?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the maximum we ever lend on like a clean single family home is 70% of value. Average, just because not everybody needs max, right? Maybe somebody wants a small cash out or whatever. We're about 56, 57% of the property's value.
So how important is it, I know you guys, we're talking about OPM, but even in the sense of the people that are borrowing money from you guys, how important is it to learn from your own standpoint as I don't want to call it a debtor because it's kind of a negative connotation, but a borrower, how important it is to learn leverage and things like that?
Well, I think it's very important for people to scale their business, right? Because you can have a great idea, you can have a great deal in real estate, but if you don't have that access to capital, unfortunately, the deal is dead. So it could be as important, if not more important, than the deal itself.
I think there's such a negative connotation around debt and things like that. And you look at any Fortune 500 company, they have loans and borrowing and things like that consistently, whether it's lines of credit or just general bank loans, things like that, notes, et cetera. If you want to scale, I think it's really important, and that's what I was trying to get across, is to borrow correctly and borrow efficiently and borrow responsibly in order to scale your business the right way. I think when we were growing up, and even definitely our parents in the 60s and 70s, it was, cash is king, cash is king. I don't think that's the thing anymore.
Yeah, you just have to have discipline with it, right?
Absolutely.
If you don't have structure and discipline, it can get away from you very quickly. But our borrowers are looking at that deal and they say, making the number up, but right, hey, we're buying this property for $1 million, we're selling it for $1.5 million. I could go get the money from somebody as a JV partner and give up 50% of the deal, right? I have to give them $250,000 up. Or I could borrow money from RPM and maybe it costs me $40,000 or $50,000 in debt and interest and fees. So they're making, $400,000 or $450,000 on that deal versus $250,000. So they just have to be disciplined, and we're a company that can provide that as long as they have a down payment. And we work with those borrowers on those unique deals that maybe a bank may not understand, or maybe the asset isn't performing yet, something like that. So we're able to get those deals done quickly for them.
And I'm sure you look at things too. A lot of people, when they come to you, not to put words in your borrowers' mouths, but they're not here right now, so I'm just kidding. But they may have a vision for a project that a bank just doesn't, like you said, understand. For example, maybe they're building out some Airbnb, or they're turning a 4-plex into a 6-plex, or this or that, or taking a hotel that's short term and turning it into apartments, et cetera. So I'm sure you can kind of see the vision of what they look at, and then loan accordingly, obviously, if they can pull it off, of course.
Yeah.
But whereas banks are like, no, this is a hotel. We're loaning based on a hotel. This is real fun, but this is what we're looking at.
Yeah, those are all real life examples. A couple recent that we've closed. A tennis court complex wanted to add padel courts, and to try to go to a bank and say, hey, we want to go. They're going to say, well, how many hours are you going to rent them? Or there's so many complex things. We're like, hey, you already have equity in your courts that you currently have. We'll cash you out to get the deal done on your padel courts. A hotel example locally, same thing. A guy owned it basically in cash, and he was trying for months and months and months to get a construction loan on his equity, and the bank just dragged him in, and we came in maybe a week or two, and we cashed him out. I think it was a $10 million loan because he had so much equity already in it, but a bank just couldn't wrap their head around it.
Absolutely. And then you have the, conversions as well. You're taking a lot of these, Sears's and Kmart's and things like that, these former big box stores, and they're turning them into, pickleball courts, and they're turning them into large storage facilities and things like that. And I can only imagine, you look at an old Kmart and you're like, this isn't a good deal, but you got to look at the vision and so much further than that.
For sure.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we talked about it a little bit. Money is a very sensitive topic with a lot of folks. So how do you have difficult conversations when it comes to money, it comes to these loans, dealing with your clients and borrowers and things like that?
So usually, hopefully, we're the one that's giving them hope after a difficult conversation they've had with their conventional lender. So with us, our lending program is very straightforward. Really, like you said, it's all about loan to value, LTV. So if the deal doesn't make sense, they're going to know right out of the gate within an hour or so. This is not going to be a 30-day process. Unfortunately, most banks, they tell you yes, yes, yes for 29 days in a row, and then they tell you no on the 30th day. So yeah, you have to have those conversations with people, but it's a very logical and reasonable conversation. Hey, you wanted $800,000, we can only lend $700,000. So somehow bridge that gap or whatever. Here's the solution for it. We'll lend on anything of value. So there's usually a very logical solution to it. Maybe every deal can't achieve that, but at least they know what we can do on the deal.
Absolutely. Obviously, this real estate market over the last, call it we'll talk about a 5-year span. It kind of was like going up, COVID, and then kind of flattened out / went down. How are you guys navigating through this real estate market?
Sure. I actually think there needs to be some normalcy back in the market. Like you said, there was COVID and other factors that made everything go crazy. But it's okay for a flat market. It's okay for a down 5%, 10% up, just a normal market. Unfortunately, most people my age or younger only saw an up market, right? Because they weren't really doing anything business-wise until 2009, 2010, right? So 16, 17 years of straight up. If you're in your 20s or 30s or 40 years old.
Yeah, you're cashing.
Yeah, you just think that the market goes up every day, and, you're not unreasonable to think that because your whole life, that's what's happened. So I don't think there's the panic of 08, and there was so much fictitious buying in 08, and anybody could get approved for a mortgage. You walk into a bank, if you had good credit, you sign some docs, and you walk out
Ninja loans.
Yeah, you walk out with a waterfront condo.
No income, no job.
Yeah, so those are gone. So I don't think you're going to see the catastrophic results of that. But things are definitely getting slower, right? Interest rates slowed a lot down. They're creeping back down, so things may pick up. But I don't think we're in any kind of downward spiral, panic, or anything like that. It's just normal rhythm of the housing market.
I think the biggest thing is it's kind of like and this is my armchair real estate professional opinion. I think it's kind of like a who blinks first type situation. I mean, I just look at my own situation. I have like a 3.1% interest rate, which based when we bought the house in 2020 was probably high. Our thing is obviously we have a ton of equity in our house. Where are we going to go?
Right.
And we're going to pay, 6-7%, on a good day. So I think it's a lot of people like, okay, who blinks first? I can afford the house. I can definitely afford it now. And if things are getting tough, I can go pull a home equity loan, so, to kind of bridge the gap. So I think that's a lot of the issue. Until we see a pendulum swing from one side or the other, it's kind of got to be a little holding pattern.
I agree.
So you're involved in a lot of other, or a handful of other investments. So you have the High Society Motor Club. I love cars. Obviously, everybody knows that. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so cars have always been my passion. Growing up, I was always going to car shows. I've acquired quite a collection over the time. So I turned it into a business where we rent them out, not like a Toro where you get the car and you drive it for the day, but high-end like wedding driveaways, or we've been featured in commercials or movies and movie sets. So just kind of the driver's there, handles the car, photography, video, more of a high-end asset class versus just renting them out, for people to go abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never the rental car business. I think if it's done the right way, it's great. But that's a scary business,
absolutely.
man.
From every aspect, liability, damage.
Oh my gosh,
anything.
I have good friends that own rental car companies. I'm sure you do too. For the normal rental car companies, I call it, and I'm like, man, you're just like letting some knucklehead drive off in your $300,000 car,
right.
for $1,000 a day, and I'm just like, man, you can stomach a lot more than I can. So,
yeah.
Obviously, I post a lot of Love Me Some Meat Market, so I'm usually there on Sundays, stone crab season especially. So tell me about how you got involved in that.
Yeah, I'm just a passive investor there, but I was brought, it's been 6 years now probably.
I don't think there's a lot you can tell them, or anybody can. They're doing a pretty good job over there.
Yeah, it's been a wild, successful venture and investment, so I'm happy I got in. It's a great place to go to and have fun over in Hyde Park. But it really, I'm just a passive investor there, so I'm not active in there day to day. I'm not cooking the steaks or anything fun like that. But it's been a great experience.
If you invest in the next one, you got to write that in your deal. Like I get a celebrity chef spotlight once a month or something like that. And then the Motor Enclave, you're part of that as well.
Yeah. So a friend up in Chicago introduced me to Brad, who's the founder.
He's great. Yeah.
And he brought me this idea at the time. Now it exists. Everyone's like, oh, great. Time it was like, what the hell is this thing, right? Like to try to get a race track downtown.
I was like, what?
15 minutes away, but he got it done. So he got the land, had to deal with all the zoning and city, issues, and dealing with the red tape of all that was insane. And then that was in the middle of COVID and all costs going through the roof.
Oh yeah.
But he got it done. It's a really,
for him to navigate through that was incredible.
Yeah, it's a really cool facility. Almost 300 car condos on a circuit track, an off-road track, skid pad. So I spent a lot of time out there. Have a couple of race cars out there, have a unit out there. So it's a lot of fun to pass the time.
That was probably one of my biggest local investment regrets is that I didn't get a unit in there early on. And I was just, not that I talked to Brad multiple times, saw him at events and stuff. And I'm like, it was just almost, I should have took the chance, should have bet on him because he's obviously crushed it. But I'm like, man, this is a heavy project. Yeah. You know what I mean? This is a lot.
Even the units
themselves.
I know
he did it. I mean, he did it in Michigan or whatever?
Correct.
But, yeah.
But day one pricing, to me was like, wow, this is a lot of money. And they've tripled since then, right? But I remember like buying my unit, even as an investor, I had to pay for my unit.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is it. But hey, it's fun. Let's have fun with it. And then, it's literally tripled. So it's been a good holding.
Absolutely insane. So with that being said, all the fun things, and I love that you, and I do the same thing. So when I am starting to invest more and more in kind of outside of the stock market, I invest in two things. I invest in, number one, people. When I have to meet, I feel like I'm on like Shark Tank or something like that. But I bet on the founder, you know what I mean? Or the people that are involved in the company. We talked about our mutual friend, Alex Ottawell,
sure.
And he's been a prior guest on the podcast. So love what he's doing with the oil company. But I bet on people, and then I bet on things I like doing. You know what I mean? So if it's like a company that doesn't align with like, something fun or
sure.
a cool restaurant concept or cars or something, I'm just kind of like, I don't need another random investment, I guess.
Right.
So You leave if you go on your Instagram, obviously, and obviously we'll tag that below. You do have a lot of fun, but obviously I'm sure you're incredibly busy with your, different investments and businesses. How do you balance that?
I mean, it's always a work-life balance, but I can do lending anywhere from the world. I just got back from a ski trip, and I'm literally answering calls on the lift. And people will call and I'll answer, hey, where you at? Hey, I'm on the lift. They're like, oh, you want to call me back? Like, no, what you know what I mean? Let's do it. So if you know me at all, I'm instantaneous. I always answer responses instantaneous, which gives me an advantage over others. And I enjoy what I do, right? Like, it's not, oh man, I have to go to work and look at loans today. It's like somebody has a fire that's affecting their life where, they think they're moving into a house and the bank just pulled the rug on them. Let's get them funded. So all that stuff is exciting. So nothing I do is a drag. So that really, there's not much to balance out then, right? Because there's not much negativity. There's not something, I really enjoy what I do every day, all day. So it's not much to balance out if it's all great.
I think that I really want to unpack this for a minute because I have a similar philosophy. I always make sure that I don't care what time it is, and forgive me for some of my clients that I call a little later, but I always return every call and every text message before the end of the day.
Yeah.
So usually, like, the latest I'll text somebody back is like 7 or 8 o'clock. If not, I'll say, hey, I'll call you tomorrow and stuff like that. But I always make sure that I give them some type of response before the end of the day. And I think a lot of people, it's one of my superpowers in my business, and I feel like it differentiates me. And I like how you explained it, that we may not see it as a fire, but that's because we have the experience and we've done what we've done for so long and things along those lines. But to that person, this is the most important thing in their life. You know what I mean? And that's what I continually remind myself is like, listen, this may not seem like, an urgent matter because I know what's going on and I know, blah, 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 we'll work out this or that. But to that person, to get on the phone with ease and ease their stresses, that's huge.
Yeah, and you actually communicate, right? And pick up. I was on
and it's you talking to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was with.
Let me get you to my assistant. Let me get you to. We'll schedule a call. Excuse me. I shouldn't say that, but fuck that. Like, no, you handle your business.
I was on a video yesterday with another real estate kind of founder in town, Chris McLaughlin. He owns Keller Williams and some other things.
I saw your video with him.
Yeah. So he posted it, and then he put my phone number on
rolls.
Yeah, exactly. He posted it, and I put my phone number on there.
Yeah.
And I got several calls, and people were like shocked that it was me, and I answered. And I'm like, that's what I said. They're like, oh wow. And then they're like, you won me over at answering, and that's so true because I know people that will reach out to real estate agents or any agent, right? Insurance or something. It could be an attorney, it could be anything, and they may not get a call back for like several days, like. Our deal,
which is insane.
Yeah, our deal already needed to be funded by then. So you're calling a client after we've already closed to maybe get their business. So yeah, just by being accessible, and no, it's not always easy, right? Everybody wants their downtime and alone time or whatever. So there's a trade-off there, but that puts you ahead in business just by answering probably in the top 90% already, right? Just there.
I'm working on a book that I'm going to release next year. So and one of the things that I'm kind of talking about and talking to people that are in like 25, 26, I'm 34 now, so not that old, but, through some of the experiences that I've had, dealing with emergencies, with urgency is so important and it's so critical. And I think a lot of people forget that. The other thing that I think they forget, in unison with this is make your money now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like life only gets harder. I have kids now and I have a beautiful wife and, but you don't get more time as you get older. And I think a lot of people are like, I can deal with it later. Just like, putting it off. And it's like, I promise you, it just gets harder to deal with.
Yeah.
Just deal with it now.
Absolutely. I agree.
So want to get into, I always ask a little AI question now because AI is such a, hot button issue. How do you, and this is very broad, but how do you think artificial intelligence will affect lending?
Personally, I'm a very low tech person, right? I could easily have virtual assistant, AI answering emails, answering calls. And I think that majority of my business people like we already said, because they're dealing with me. I'm the decision maker. I'm the underwriter. I'm the funder. I'm initiating the wire and all that stuff. So there's a lot of companies that will use it for volume scaling, but I think it kills the quality in lending and in just being a human. I think a lot of people can act smart now because they can put something in AI, but they're actually even further limiting what their own brain power can do. So
agree.
anybody with any brain power is only going to excel, because you're not always going to have the robot to help you out there, right? And to think for you. So I think that for us, we'll continue on the same path, which isn't using much, and who knows if that's the right way or wrong way. But our company and our values and how we run things, I think it's the right decision for us.
I think the biggest thing, and I've talked about this in the past, is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't understand your business and you don't understand, how to operate it, then how are you going to put information to AI and then know it's going to spit out correctly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if you have these, VAs, or you have these, AI agents and things, and, you don't know your business to a T, then how are you even going to train those, I guess, people, for lack of better terms, or those things, to even provide the right information.
Sure.
And, to your point too, as far as the scale, it's like, do you want to do 10 $500,000 loans, or do you want to do one $5 million loan?
Right.
Because I'm sure it's very similar amount of work.
Yeah, it is.
So, but only doing 10 times over.
Right.
So I think scale at one side is a very good thing, but I think you're just trading dollar for dollar at the end of the day as well.
Very true.
How do you see the wealthy use money differently?
As investing, it's a lot easier to...
However you want to, by the way, very broad question.
Yeah,
so
sure.
however you want to answer that.
So the wealthy, they obviously have a stockpile of money, whatever it is. As we said, I use other people's money in some of our loans. So we yield a very high yield, safe return to them. So there's guys that have a certain level of net worth that could just never work, and they get a check from us dispersed every month automatically on it, and they're never going to lose their money. Their money's never at risk. So in that regard, it's a lot easier. On the other side, to get that money, I think it's just smart decisions. Like, I just sit back and I look at friends or borrowers or people that I know, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, these decisions are, whether it be to look a certain way or to have a certain lifestyle. Like, if you're not there yet, then bust your ass and get there. Don't fake it, because you're only gonna hurt yourself in the long run and in the end, and not achieve the goal that you want.
This shirt, by the way, is real. So these are real $100 bills. I just wanted to say that. No,
Old school ones too.
No, yeah, these are gangster, right? I wore this because you're the money man.
I appreciate it.
I love the Friday money shirt. I agree with you completely. I think that, and I've read a lot about the wealthy and things, and how they do things, and how to be able to scale, and how they make decisions. And one of the biggest things that I see as well is that they're very, like you led on to, very decisive and very quickly. They know what they're looking at. They stay in their lane, and it's either yes or no. It's I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people, I'm not talking about the $1 to $10 million guy. I'm talking about the $50, $100 million guy. They know what they're looking at. They've done it enough times where they're like, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, and I agree with you on a quick decision making, because action, something will come of that. It might even be a loss, but at least you have a lesson learned at that point. What really kills people, and I see it all the time, is just sitting there and doing nothing and analyzing and going back and forth, because there's no path, there's no right way. So even if you make an action and it's 100% the wrong decision, it's going to create something else. Something else will spin off that, or you'll learn something. So there's not a negative thing to that, even though it might seem like it in the beginning. It really action creates success, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you have 10 at bats and you miss at 2 of them, you still hit the other 8.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're ahead of the game, as obviously, as long as you haven't taken too big of a loss and you're smart with your money. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you see first-time investors make?
So we tell people all the time, hey, don't do this deal. Like, we could have done it and it's safe for us, but they're looking at a deal and they take, 30-day rehab, 2 days on market, 30-day close, perfect budget.
So their timeline's off, and
everything's
business
off.
plan.
They're taking best case scenario. They need to say, all right, I think it's going to take me 2 months. It's going to take me 6 months to rehab it. I think it's going to be on the market for 30 days. It's going to be 4 months on market. Then that closing is going to fall through 3 times, and I'm going to be, another 90 days on that.
Unless they borrow from you guys, right? Bang.
There you go. But, rehab's going to be $50,000. It's probably going to be $70,000. I've never seen a deal come on time or on budget in my life, including my own deals.
Of course.
It just never happens. I have, some projects that have taken forever.
Real estate's the people business.
Yeah,
you have a lot of reliance on people.
So just people that have an expectation, or they think that everything is going to go fairly well, because it's not. And then if you take your worst case scenario, probably going to be a little worse than that.
Yeah.
But at least if you balance it off the worst case scenario, you're going to be okay on the exit.
And even looking at it on a global scale, if you think this deal is going to take, selling or rehabbing and getting a renter in there is going to take you 4 months, just calculate a year.
Yeah.
And I think that, we were kind of talking about at the beginning of the podcast, and I was asking, what kind of gets people in trouble. And I think exactly like you said, especially, not necessarily that this is hard money, but, if you think you're paying this back in, 4 months or 5 months, and it takes you a year and a half, you get super upside down really quick.
Yeah. So you need to make sure that deal pencils still at a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then when it comes in at 8 months or 4 months, like you said, it's just gravy on top, but you're not hurting yourself.
What have you seen from the people that, and I guess you've kind of answered this a little bit, but if there's anything else that people that know how to put together, I guess on the borrowing side, good deals versus not. Like if somebody brings something to you, what are some green flags, for lack of better terms, that you're like, okay, this is easy to understand, this is followed, this is logical, versus somebody that brings you a deal to loan against and it's like, this is a mess.
Yeah, I mean, in this market, there are deals to be had now, right?
Of course.
Going back 2, 3, 4 years ago, everyone was trying to like chase the last dollar. There really was no wholesale market, because even those people were paying almost retail. There were so many people trying to get in the flip game or real estate game.
Oh gosh.
Now it's the opposite, right? Nobody wants to be flipping, or nobody wants to be in real estate, and there's deals to be had, right? Because there's people who are hurting potentially. There's not a crazy, wholesalers that are bidding everything up to retail. So this is where you want to come in and get real deals.
Well, there's
on
no
projects.
margin in it.
Yeah, there wasn't. Now there's not everybody has to sell at whatever price. Yeah. But if you go out there and you have cash, or you have a lender like me that can act in days, you can go out there and make lowball offers. And if somebody's distressed, they need to do it. So those are the deals that you can find and make the real money now.
I think the biggest thing too, and we were talking about it before, maybe on your first couple deals, I like seeing things and touching things and as far as, the investments that I make. So maybe on your first couple, and if you're living in Florida, for example, maybe you do a deal in Florida that you can actually see happen. Don't go do your first deal in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Tennessee.
And even on the lending side, we lend in other states, but we are much more comfortable being around Tampa or being in Florida versus some other state that we barely know. When we lend in those states, we take 5 to 10% off the LTV, right?
Yeah.
So if we would do a 70% home here in Tampa, we may only do 60% on that same home in Georgia or South Carolina or whatever, because we don't have the boots on the ground, we don't have the infrastructure there. So same thing with flipping. If you're going to get into an investment, or even if it's rentals, right? Because a problem happens, you can run down to your house here in Tampa, fix whatever you got to fix, or deal with a tenant issue. You don't want to have to take a flight to South Carolina or pay some company some crazy rate because they know you're not there, that kind of thing.
Well, and I follow a lot of the Section 8 guys as well, doing the volume and stuff, and it's like, it's very easy. You just get a $70,000 house in Missouri, and then you get a loan for 80% LTV, which I don't know if that's possible, and then you get a property management company out there, you put $6,000 into a rehab, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I should cut that as an ad. You guys, if you use that, you owe me money. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't want to deal with a Section 8 property in Missouri.
Right.
Like,
right.
I want.
There's always going to be problems.
Yeah, and then also too, I think you have to look at the risk versus time risk versus reward and et cetera. Meaning, is it better to buy $100,000 deal and hope it goes to 120? Is it better to buy wait till you have the funds, buy a $200,000 deal and wait till it goes to 250?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think people are so desperate to kind of like pick up these little deals and like pick up these, like, I don't want to call them shit boxes, but little tinker toy houses, that it's like, you probably just could have bought a much better asset in a much better area and saw a more consistent rise than, all of a sudden hitting pay dirt 10 years down the road.
Yep.
So tell us a crazy story. And however you want to take that, that's why I picked that word. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, something fun.
Crazy story. Let me think on this.
So we loaned on the house and then we found a body. No, I'm just kidding. So
I'll keep it outside of real estate. I'll go more personal. So we're always doing these like crazy challenges at work. Most of them are to benefit health or money or.
Did you guys do the walking challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we got my older brother got to like 95,000 steps in a day, and then the next guy tapped out. So he owed everybody dinner, but
awesome.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But I was challenged that I couldn't work at KFC, Taco Bell for a month. Oh my God. So, and I did it. It was the one right Actually, right over here.
So how did that work? How did you get hired there? Did you know somebody that owned one or?
No. This is all like I walked there. I didn't drive anything fancy. Like I did it legitimately.
Did you like submit a job application and everything?
Yeah, exactly. So I went there, and
what was on the line?
It was a $20,000 bet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to work, I think, 80 hours within a month. But I still had all my other businesses and my other jobs.
Yeah.
And like, you can't like, as you're cashing out somebody for their chalupa, you can't be like, hey, I got to take this
So you worked there for a month?
Yeah, 80 hours. And then I finished out my schedule. I didn't want to quit early on them. So I finished out to like 87 hours or 88 hours.
Did you tell them when you left?
So they started to get a little suspicious, like because I showed up on time. I didn't miss any days.
You were like a star employee.
Yeah. I showed up early the first day, and they're like, they literally said, we've never had anybody show up early before. Like, I was just busting my ass. I got promoted to like.
They were about to make you store manager. Like,
I got quickly, like day 2, I got promoted to like drive through and.
2 days in?
Yeah, 2 days in. It was a good experience, but there were some funny times because imagine I have $5 million of your dollars, right?
Yeah.
Invested. And you roll through the Taco Bell drive-thru.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
did
you see any clients?
And you see me, yes, I did. And I also didn't want to blow my cover, so they were like, I'm just like, I'll call you later, like, relax. But yeah, that was some crazy experience.
Did anybody post you on social or anything like that, or like, was it able to keep under wraps so you could get through the challenge?
So one time, one of my coworkers, this was a couple weeks in, she had my Facebook up. And I was like, oh, I'm busted.
You're like, who are you judging? What are you doing eating here? Like,
exactly. No, but I started sweating. Like I was like, oh shit, I'm blown, right?
Yeah.
And she had a picture of my Facebook, and I guess since we had like no mutual friends or anything, it just showed my main picture. It didn't show like anything about me. And so I was like, yeah, that's me, whatever. But I thought she like saw my life. Yeah, I thought she got me. But no, I finished everything out. Had some good experiences there. Had some, I'm sure, bad experiences there.
Funny. My buddy owns a bunch of Taco Bells. I hope nobody ever challenges me to this. This would be something. So, and then can we go through the step challenge? Because that's I was messaging back and forth about that, and actually followed you and or whoever did it, and then the other guy. What is it? The most steps in a day?
So yeah. So there's about 10 guys in my office. Yeah. They don't work for me, but we all share businesses and whatnot. And it started out. A guy was out west in the canyon somewhere out there, and he did like 25,000 steps in a day.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, I bet you guys can't beat this. And then
just go to Disney. I've done it. Yeah.
Exactly. So then another guy did it, and we turned it into like, if you don't beat it, you got to buy the office, actually Meat Market.
Yeah.
Went to Meat Market.
Respect.
So when it got to me, it got to like 40,000, and then somebody did like 70 something thousand, then I did 70 something thousand to beat them.
70's pretty
nuts, it was
dude.
tough. Like
what do you woke up at, like 3 or 4?
Exactly, yeah. And unfortunately when I did it, it was still like summertime, so it was pretty hot, it was in the 80s and sunny, and the first 40 to 50,000 steps are pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then the last, my mistake was I didn't train, I didn't do anything, I didn't get like proper shoes. I took a break midday, and like when you take a break, your body basically like shuts
down.
It thinks,
Start
okay,
going
this
into
is
recovery.
over. Yeah. Exactly. So then I had to start over. I did a 2-hour break. My mistake. Start over. Then a huge like hurricane rainstorm came in.
Yep.
So I had to stop again and then restart. But I got it done. Ended up finishing at like 9 o'clock, I think. PM.
I've seen 100,000 steps in a day. I've seen a couple YouTube videos on it.
And then my older brother did, I think 95,000, 94,000 in a day. And then the next guy just tapped out. He's like, all right, Meat Market it is.
Dude, 95,000, like that's like, I think you do have to probably train a little bit.
Yeah.
And like you got to time it right. You got to time it right.
Good shoes,
weather
change your socks, good weather, all that kind of stuff.
Don't take a break.
No.
Like if you're, maybe short breaks.
10, 15-minute breaks.
Hydrating. You're probably hydrating the week before. Yeah. I just did a 5K.
Okay.
And running's no joke, dude.
Yeah. It's tough.
I've always been bad at it and things like that, and I'm pretty addicted now, especially getting the first race out of the way. But respect to all the people that hit the cardio hard. Obviously, you're dealing with very large amounts of money very consistently and things like that. How do you stay grounded?
I mean, you just keep setting goals and working on those goals, and every year you look back and hopefully you have improved, and I feel that I have. But you just try to keep that trajectory and never lose sight of it where, okay, I'm not going to answer my phone anymore. Or you're not, lose those things that made you have the success that you did. It's probably very easy to, get too big and, again, hire VAs and look at the deals here and there and have a manager that processes them. But I don't ever want to lose that identity, right? It's my identity. It's the company's identity. and I enjoy it. So I don't have any plans to, and hope we keep it that way.
I think the biggest thing for me is there's so much competition in my space. I mean, I don't think you can drive by a billboard in Tampa without seeing a lawyer on it. And I take it as a huge compliment and a huge responsibility that people decide to pick me.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's, a lot of lenders in town and things like that. So for somebody to, hey, I want to do a deal with you, or I want I'm sure it's awesome. You know, it's super cool. And that's the biggest thing that keeps me going at the end of the day. And I get people, I'm sure similarly, they're like, well, I know this is a small case for you. And I said, I've handled, 7-figure cases. I've handled $5,000 cases.
Sure.
I treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
The money doesn't affect me. That's not why I do this.
Absolutely.
So I always ask this question at the end of the podcast, and I gave you a heads up on this one. So when the music stops and your story ends, what do you want to be remembered for?
I think that, I've built my success through discipline and hard work. Nobody gave me a blueprint for anything, right? I've created this company from scratch and created these different businesses that I'm active on, from scratch. It wasn't like I went and worked for a company and worked my way up to CEO or things like that. So it's a different route than probably a lot of people have taken. And there's no right way to do it, right? You can be anywhere in life and all of a sudden have success. But I think that constant determination and discipline is the real characteristic that will get you there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I know and I feel like some of these things people put out there to try to make themselves feel better, they try to say nobody remembers the job that they had. They remember the time they spent with their family. But it would give me solace to know that the hard work that I did was able to support my family for generations to come. And people are able to remember me for that as well.
Yeah.
So, well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast today. Give us the contact information for the viewers. So obviously, we'll put it in the description below, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so the personal Instagram is Mr. McGuinness, mrmcguinness, and the business is RPM Realty, INV, like invest. So they can hit me up on Instagram. We can, fund their deals, approve them in an hour. So if anybody has any deals that they want me to look at, only going to take, a lot of times when you apply for a loan, it's very tedious, right?
Oh, yeah.
For us, we're going to have a 2-minute conversation. I'm going to get back to you in an hour.
We need a tax return for the last 9 years. We need a kidney. We need your firstborn, and you better have at least 90% of the money for a down payment.
So if there's a deal that you want me to look at, it's not going to waste either of our time. Or if you just want some insight, hey, I'm looking at this deal, but it's going to be my first deal. What are your thoughts on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll look at it for you. That's not a problem at all, and kind of help you out in that way. So we do that for a lot of people.
Perfect. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as we always say, it is no accident that Ryan is as successful as he is. I appreciate you, my man.
Yeah, thanks
for coming. Appreciate it. See you guys next time.